Hey all, it's me. Here to do another demo of a prototype, the SQR ONE. Um, the story behind that kind of goes back to my early childhood, like the late 70, like 79 or whatever, 78, in my basement in my first home. It was kind of like, it wasn't like a finished basement. It was more like a half-assed version of that, where it's like through a carpet, it's concrete, throw a carpet down, nail up some wood paneling, and there you go. And we had some killer blacklight posters. I still like think about them today and wish I had it. One was like a Ghost Rider kind of being, like a skeleton on a chopper, like with flames coming off it, which somehow wasn't terrifying as a kid to me. And then the other one was just, man, I wish I had. It was this giant, like complex looking spaceship, like big mothership with like all kinds of details and like, oh, it was just awesome. Um, it was a awesome basement. The one the you walk down, the first half was like kind of like a hangout room for us, me and my siblings. There's like a toy box, and there's a big TV right down there on the floor there. Remember when TVs used to be on the floor? They were all on the floor, right? And then all of a sudden, anyway, the other half of the basement was like my dad's like little workbench, and then like washer and dryer and stuff. Anyway, so at some point we got we got a Atari 2600, and I have such vivid memories of sitting down there playing those games. Um, Actually, I should have dug it up for this video, but I have my favorite game was that we had was Warlords. Um, and through some strange star planet alignment, I ended up getting that same cartridge, the same exact one, back like 30 or more years later from my father's best friend, who apparently had it. And I knew it was the same one because it had my father's initials on it. And back in the day, my dad was going to do this like rental of Atari cartridges, which if he had done that, probably would have had a lot of money, because it was, an idea that, people didn't really, that wasn't a thing then, but shortly after that, it became a thing, of course. Anyway, getting off track. Whenever I talk about my early childhood, it's just like, I want to just stay there. Trust me. But, Atari, the thing that I loved about it, and I wasn't one of those people that was like obsessed with video games, but I loved the Atari because everything about it was different and new. Like the sounds were all electronic sounds and unique electronic sounds. I just love the, like, especially the noise based sounds, the explosions, and just like the engines of spaceships. It's just like all this. It was just amazing. And then you had the the imagery, which was, you know, I don't I don't know if I thought this at the time, but I remember thinking like this. I remember, I don't know how to say it. The images were electronic. They were like the first electronic images to me. Um, and they matched the sound. The audio and the visuals were purely electronic. You know, they weren't made up of actual, you know, real things. You know, they were electronically created. And throughout my entire life, I just have always that whenever I hear a sound that's like that or see it, those blocky 8-bit images, like it just makes me smile. And when I, you know, started playing electronic music, excuse me, sorry. You know, I was always searching for those sounds, and when I started experimenting and designing my own electronic, you know, devices for playing music, you know, I instantly was like after those sounds, and I just slowly but surely over the years have just been getting deeper and deeper into like square wave synthesis, and you know, finding a way to take sounds, square them up, and do various things to them within that realm, within that, like, technically digital, that square wave realm. Just because it has such, the sounds are just so distinct, and so distinct in a way that, like, brings me back to that, my early childhood. And so, you know, one of the obstacles with taking, you know, something like a guitar and getting it to exist within that square wave realm is you gotta, you know, first of all, amplify the shit out of it, because, you know, the ICs, the CMOS logic ICs that you use to get to create those circuits that make those sounds, have a, you know, a input threshold that you have to bust through. And so you got to amplify the crap out of your guitar. But then also, you know, once your guitar dies, you know, you hit a note, it's, you know, at its peak when you first hit that note, and then it starts to decay, the amplitude. And you need to keep the amplitude high enough so that it doesn't just, like, you hit a note and then it dies away real quick. You know, because as soon as it drops just a little bit, it's gone. And so you have to amplify it. You have to try to sustain it at a certain level. And, you know, you have to square it up. You know, you send it through the first set of logic ICs to square it up and condition it. And then from there, you can send it off to anything else, and it's fine. But that first circuit, that preamp circuit, essentially, that conditioning circuit, is the tough one. And, you know, as a lot of people know, with stuff like octave divider circuits, which are almost always, you know, I don't know of any that aren't technically digital. I mean, they're analog and they're digital. You know, nowadays it's hard to talk about, because when you say digital, people think like virtual, or, you know, where it's like you have this like super complex, you know, microcontroller, microprocessor doing all this stuff to, you know, and creating this, you know, virtual version of it. Whereas, you know, something like an octave divider, you're just using very, very simple circuits, and it just happens to be square waves, so that's digital. On, off is a square wave. There's no... So, where am I going? Oh, so, as a lot of people know, you know, getting an octave divider that will play well or all over the neck of a guitar is tough, and that's because of the nature of an electric guitar. It's an electroacoustic instrument, and because it's an acoustic, it has like weird things happen. You know, you hit a note, and what a lot of people, you don't even notice it, but if you really, really listen with a guitar, sometimes you hit a note, and it will jump octaves. it'll jump back and forth. And like I said, it's not something you really even notice, because it's not a drastic, it's not a thing that changes what you're hearing that much. It's kind of hard to explain. But when you're sending it into something like a digital circuit, a square wave realm circuit, when that happens, you hear it. It's like, back and forth. And some of that is beyond our control, unless you get into those virtual circuits where you're like, it's just analyzing, the frequency of the note that you're putting into it and then doing all this crazy stuff. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about stuff that's very, very basic, no brain, no computerized brain at work here. So anyway, it's tough to keep it so that it's not getting all glitchy and stuff. So again, that's the other part of, getting a guitar signal to behave within this realm. So you need to amplify the crap out of it. You need to try to keep it sustained at a certain level for, enough time for you to play without it just fizzling out. And you need to try to not have the signal jump around, a lot. So I have been experimenting with those circuits for years now. And there's certain circuits require a particular circuit to do this. But in general, one circuit seems to work really well with everything. And I thought, well, I'm always finding myself needing that circuit to experiment with that type of circuitry. It's like, okay, I need this circuit first, and then I'm going to experiment sending it through this other stuff. So rather than rebuild it on the breadboard every single time, I was like, I should just come up with a pedal that I can build, that I can just plug into the pedal and then plug that into my breadboard, and I'm good to go, and I don't have to worry about that, and it's, consistent and everything. So that's what I did. But then I was like, well, why don't now, while I'm at it, why don't I make it as if it was going to be something I would sell too? And then I was like, I'm like, this would be really great as a not just, a distortion in and of itself, but something that you could interface easily with a modular synthesizer system. And then I was like, it's like, well, it's a square wave. I should have a pulse width control on it, because that's, it's technically a pulse wave rather than square wave. Square wave means that it's the top and the bottom half of the waveform are equal. Whereas a pulse means, it's rectangle. So it's like, you can go up and down, and then the bottom can be real wide or top or whatever. And the pulse width, makes the width of the pulse go back and forth. And I came up with, that's another thing I came up with when I've been experimenting, is a pulse width control that I really liked, and that's versatile, and that, you can control with a control voltage. So anyway, that's how we got this. So it has what did I call it? Sensitivity. This is the input control. It's an input attenuator. And it allows you to set it so that you can take even the weakest signal, like from like a cheap microphone or something like that, or a guitar or whatever, and it'll kick through the circuit. And and you want this to be adjustable, because sometimes if you have this kind of thing turned up all the way, the slightest little like tap of the string will like kick it over, so it'll be kind of like glitchy, which is cool sometimes. But there's times where you really want it to be very like compressed and, you know, in control, so it's not making shit jump all around and triggering stuff when you don't want it to be triggered. So, you know, if you have something that's really a really strong signal, it's sometimes better to turn the sensitivity down. Anyway, and then we have the pulse width control, and then we have a range for the pulse width control. The pulse width circuit is actually a high pass circuit, but within the square wave realm, so it doesn't do what you hear an analog high pass circuit do. That's how you say. It does pulse width pulse width adjustment. How would you say that? Because it's not modulation unless you're like having something modulated. Anyway, it makes things too complicated. So yeah, then there's, like I said, there's this range, and that's for, you know, if you have something that's in a very high frequency range, you want to put it on the first one, because it keeps it within that. And since this is it is a high pass circuit, it will, if you say put a bass through it on that highest setting, it's going to get really thin instantly, and it's not going to be within the range of that instrument. So you know what I'm saying? And then there's two other settings. So this number 2 here, that's for a guitar that seems to work well all over the neck. And then 3 is more for something like in the bass guitar range. And then you have output. And then we have ways to interface it with a modular synthesizer system. You have this jack here. This controls the pulse width. So you can put a control voltage in here, LFO, or I'm going to plug in a envelope generator that's kind of looping like an LFO. Once I start demonstrating it. Then there's a gate input. This switches the circuit on and off. So if you put a square wave LFO, or any kind of LFO, because it'll turn in any signal that goes into this input here is going to be turned into a square wave, and then it will gate the circuit on and off. So when it's off, you don't hear anything, and when it's on, you do. And it's like a choppy tremolo effect if you put like an LFO into it. You can also put an audio rate signal into either of these, and it'll give you these ring mod, amplitude mod type effects. And then this is an output that is basically a DC version of the regular output turned up all the way. So this, you can plug it into any synth module you have, and it will be enough to, you know, kick over its threshold. So it's, like I said, it's great. You can plug your guitar into it and then plug this into your synthesizer system, and, you know, it's not a clean version of your guitar signal, but who cares, right? We want it all distorted and fucked up and crazy. So but yeah, so I'm gonna stop talking without playing now, and I'm gonna start playing and talking, and demonstrate what this does and what it sounds like and how you can interface it with stuff. And yeah. Alright, so first we're going to just listen to what the basic square wave distortion coming from this thing sounds like. So if you don't have the sensitivity turned up high and you're playing something like a guitar, which is a very, it's a passive, fairly weak signal, it won't sustain a ton. It's still, I made the sensitivity control so it will really allow you to plug in anything you can think of into it and have it behave well. You hear when I'm plucking these high notes, they don't go sustain very long, but so you can get as much sustain as you want. What you're hearing there is me just like kind of rubbing the strings, which is what I was telling you about. Like, if you have the sensitivity turned all the way up, it can get a little glitchy like that, unless you play tighter. So some of it, getting this to work well, so many pedals really, comes down to having control over your playing and your dynamics. It's such an important thing, and I feel like so many people neglect it. They just focus on hitting the notes and everything, and they don't focus on how they hit the notes, and how they control the vibration of the strings on their guitar. It's, there's so much stuff that you can do once you learn how to control your dynamics. Now remember what I said, this range switch, it changes the range of the high pass circuit that is controlling the pulse width. In the middle is the highest frequency, so it's kind of high for just guitar. But this position number 2 is, I think, kind of perfect for a guitar. See, it kind of has this like weird resonant filter kind of effect. Get this like kind of 60s fuzz, nasally fuzz sound. And when you're using an outside CV signal to control this acts as a CV attenuator, so you can fine tune it to whatever CV that you're sending through it. Although it wants a 0 to 5 volt range, so something to keep in mind. I'll talk about that later on. And then you have position 3, which is the lowest. First, let's explore the outside interfacing features. I'm going to plug in this CV expression pedal that I designed and built. Sorry. And we'll use it to adjust the pulse width. So turn that up so that it'll allow all the CV to come through. Turn down the volume so it doesn't glitch out. And plug it into this out-of-shot modular synthesizer system I have over here. And I'm going to now control the pulse width with an envelope generator that's cycling, so it's like I said, it's like an LFO. Hold on, I gotta adjust it a little bit. And I'm going to show you what happens when we put that into the gate control. It will no longer adjust the pulse width, obviously, but now if we plug that into a fast clock signal, and let's do a combination of, let's see here, let's plug that back in there, that into there. So there we have essentially an LFO sweeping the pulse width and a faster synced clock going into gating the circuit on and off. All right, hold on before I do this. See how you can adjust the amount of the CV and the intensity of its effect. Alright, next we are going to see what happens when we plug audio rate modulation sources into these things. That's going into that's an audio rate, it's an oscillator at audio rate going into the pulse width CV input. Then we can plug it into the same signal into the gate. So you can see, you can, have lots of fun messing around with, here, let me see, yikes. Jesus Christ. Hold on. Alright, so now there's the audio rate oscillator signal going into the gate signal. And then the expression pedal controlling the pulse width. I just turned the frequency range of the oscillator up. Alright. Next, finally, I'm going to plug a bass in so you can hear what's going on. I'm not going to show you this line out because it's kind of, it would just be hard to demonstrate exactly what that does right now. Because most of my modules are my own design modules, so it's kind of hard to know. It's all you need to know is that it's that what you're hearing at a condition in a way that any synthesizer module will accept the signal. Alright. Come here, Mr. Bass. I'm not sure why this is. Oh, I see. Wires crossed. Grounding out. Plug this into here. And I'm just going to use the expression pedal to adjust the pulse width rather than turn the knob. So. And as you'll hear, the distortion, you know, the sound coming out of this pedal has tons of low end. Now, when you narrow the pulse, it strips away some of that because it's adjusting the frequency range of the signal, but on its own, it's heavy as fuck. I don't have any chops today or any other day. you know, decidedly phaser-like effect when you're sweeping through it. So let's modulate it. This first. Plug in to the gate. Sorry. Is it still in shot? Probably not. Whatever. You can really, you know, do a half-assed job of making your bass sound like a, or anything sound like a synthesizer, right? Anyway, that's the SQR ONE. This is gonna be the way it is. I may do little tweaks to, you know, the circuit, the range of things or whatever, but you know, I've been messing with this circuit for a long time, so it's, you know, it's fairly set in stone. I'm not sure when this pedal is gonna come out, but you know, I'm just gonna keep posting these videos of the prototypes I have and just go from there. You know, for a long time I thought, you know, don't you know, give people a taste of something until you're ready for an official release of it. But I have, you know, fucking 100 prototypes and none of them are out yet. I'm hoping that's going to change this year, by the end of this year at least. But you know, I'm too much of a perfectionist. I gotta stop. I know I gotta stop being like that with everything. I need to just do it. You know, tomorrow may never come. So live for today, right? All right, guys. Thanks.